This is Walter. This is a milk bone. This is not cool. That's a way of dog kind of showing a little dominance. So if you're petting a dog and it does that, immediately stop. Now Walter has a resource guarding problem. In this video, we're going to go over tips and tricks to help you stop any dog from having a resource guarding issue. Careful, your middle finger, sometimes it's getting close to dipping in there. Perfect. All right, now this is a milk bone. Milk bones actually have no carcinogens in them, so I don't ever feed my dogs milk bones. 1 or 2 is not going to harm. This is the only thing we can think of that he might be a resource guarder for. Now the problem with this is I'm pretty sure as soon as I give this to him, he's going to take it and go somewhere else, probably, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, so what I'm going to do, now if I'm holding this, it's mine. If he has it, it's his. If I hold it and let him sample on it, it's ours. That's a little bit rude. And so when I have puppies, I actually train them to not have a resource guarding by letting them nibble on something like this. He's not going to be resource guarding it if I'm holding onto it and I can remove it and not get the problem. Now, resource guarding is actually not considered an aggressive behavior, even though it looks very aggressive. Now, when a dog usually does it, they're standing over the item and their head, and if you come near them, that's kind of what you saw, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so now if you get an emergency situation, I'm a force-free person. But if you get an emergency situation, the dog has something dangerous, if you can make a loop or a lariat, put the leash around the dog's head, and if you pull the dog's head up out of that orientation, a lot of times the resource guarding will dissipate. I do not recommend doing that because that will accelerate and amplify the resource guarding problem. In this video, we're going to talk about how we can fix the problem permanently. But in case you get in a situation the dog has something dangerous, there's your workaround. Now, so what I would do is when I get, well, first of all, what I would do is teach the dog to drop. This will help with some other things we talked about. Most of us, we try to take things from the dog, and that makes it a high value item. So a dog has an item in his mouth, hold the treat up in front of their nose. He'll try to take it with the item in his mouth. Don't give him any commands, wait, and as soon as he drops the item, then pop the treat in his mouth and say the word drop. We shape the behavior with low value items, and later on when he has a high value item, you say drop, he spits it out because he's going to get a treat. We've helped him practice that. Now for resource guarding, basically it's a natural response for dogs in the wild. Why don't we come over here so people at home can see what a handsome dog you are. All right, so in the wild, if he has a chicken and another dog comes nearby, he's going to growl at that other dog. That is not resource guarding. So if you have a dog that growls when somebody walks by, you can train your dog through the method we're talking about here not to do that. But if another dog approaches him while he's eating a bone or something, it's a very natural thing for him to say back off through a growl. A growl is not aggression, a growl is a warning. So never punish your dog for growling, because you'll train the dog just to go straight to a bite, which I mentioned off camera. Okay, so when a dog, if he has this item, when I get close enough and he feels threatened, he's going to freeze. And he's going to you'll probably see his pupils dilate, he might get stiff, his tail might go up, his ears will probably come forward. There are a lot of different signs. And if you have a dog with resource guarding one problem, what you might want to do is give them an object, whatever they're going to guard, and have somebody film it. And then have somebody approach measuredly. Don't walk all the way up. But as soon as the dog gets freezes, that's the dog's warning saying, you're getting close, I'm getting ready to get really angry. So we want to take note of whatever that distance is. So let's say that I had given him this, and then he walked away, and I started walking towards him. Let's say I get to 12 feet, and he freezes. Well, over here, buddy. Yeah, I thought that might work. And so if he freezes, he's saying that that's close to my limit. If I keep on getting closer, just like us, we would growl if somebody tried to come in a changing room or whatever. So what I want to do is, if it's 12 feet, I want to stop at 12 feet. Then what I'm going to do is walk away. I'm going to get some high value training treats like these. Chicken liver. Even though I have this one, this is much higher because it's using a scent. So chicken liver, something that's going to have a strong scent. So while the dog's chewing this, I stop at whatever the distance the dog, we want to practice it before the dog reacts. Once the dog starts reacting, it's not going to learn anything. So if it's 12 feet, I stop at maybe 13 feet. I pull out a high value training treat and I toss it at the dog, and then I turn and walk away. And the dog puts the item down, it gets the treat, and then goes and grabs the original item, and then goes back to it. Then I might approach from a different angle. You want to approach from a whole bunch of different angles. And but do it at a fairly measured speed at first. Eventually you can get faster and faster. You want to gradually make it more and more challenging. But the idea is you want to keep on going, and then after doing this 5 or 6 times, he seems to be relaxed at 12 feet, or at 13 feet. So then I take another step and go to 12 feet. If he still stays relaxed, I toss the treat and I walk away, and I keep on approaching at 12 feet. And I keep on doing this until eventually we get to the point where you're right there and walking up and he's relaxed, he's not reacting. What we're saying is when a human approaches, they're not here to take your stuff, they're here to make your situation better. They give you this high value treat and they don't take the item. Well, I don't have to defend it because the human's not trying to take it. The human helped me practice this by coming and stopping before I got nervous or anxious or fearful about it. The human is tossing a treat at a distance I feel comfortable with. And then gradually we get closer and closer and closer until eventually we can just hand the dog the treat and the dog is happy. And if we've built in the drop command like I talked about earlier, they naturally are inclined to drop it. Now if your dog does drop something and you want to take it away from them, you should give them a bully stick or a marrow bone or a kneecap or a cow's ear or something of equal greater value so they feel that I didn't get the short end of the stick. Stick, see, it's a pun. Okay, so now, so what about dogs that have a resource guarding problem with food, which is one of the problems that he has? Come on. Sit. There you go. All right, so if your dog has a resource guarding with food, what you can do is approach your dog's bowl, and the same deal, but you want to throw the treat into the bowl from the distance. And again, approach it at different angles. And eventually get to the point where you can get pretty much right next to the bowl. Now, if you start reaching for it, that might make him growl. So just reach as far as you can, but if he starts getting stiff, stop at that point and toss a treat from that distance. Now, eventually when you get really close, what I usually do is get a long-handled spoon, and then I let the dog eat half of its food, and then I get a scoop of canned food. Ooh, this is really good stuff. So once he's halfway done with eating his food, I plop that in there and then walk away. And we've first we got him comfortable with us getting closer and closer, and we've proven that we're trustworthy because we don't ever try to take his stuff. Now, when I'm eating and they approach me, they make my food better. I like it when they come. So eventually you can come in and you can actually hand put stuff in there. Now for some dogs, there's an expression, don't bite the hand that feeds you. And that expression comes from dogs won't actually bite a hand. So if you have a dog that has a real problem with feeding, what you might want to do is actually feed them by hand, and they won't bite your hand. And then eventually, a little bit at a time. Now, if I'm feeding the dog by hand, I'd be feeding it like here, and eventually I would do this a couple meals until he's comfortable eating it. Then I would start touching his flank, and I would just touch and pull my hand away. And eventually touch and caress a little bit, pull it away, and then I'm petting, and then I'm gradually going to work my way up until eventually I can be petting him under his chin, and the dog is comfortable with me doing it and not growling at all because I've earned its trust, I've taken the time, and I've helped it practice and understand that when a human approaches, they're not here to take your stuff, they're here to make your situation better. Now I got this technique that I just got done describing out of a book called Mine, M-I-N-E with an exclamation point. It's a book by Gene Donaldson, who is a very well-renowned dog behaviorist and dog trainer. It is all based on positive reinforcement. I'm giving you a very, very condensed version of it. But if you have a dog with a resource guarding problem, you might want to buy the book. It's, I think, like 10 or 20 bucks. It's well worth it. If you do this, this is a permanent solution. Now, if you have a dog that resource guards bones, dogs can resource guard a location, an object, or a person. I'm getting, from what I understand, is we're guarding one of the humans in the house at times. He's also done some other things. I think the biting your hand in the car and some of those things were just him being a little bit of a brat because he didn't really have any rules before the session. So I think that wasn't a resource guarding issue. But if your dog resource guards a location, then practice that location. If it's a kennel or a bone, just make a list of all those things and practice with them one at a time. Practice one at a time and exhaust that one before you go on to the next one. But eventually you'll deprogram the dog from all these things. And when you walk up, the dog, instead of being growling at you, tail wags and is happy because when the human approaches, they're going to make my situation better. Ain't that right, Walter? This is Walter, and these are some tips and tricks you can use if you have a dog that likes to resource guard.